Now for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning, let's bring in Arise analyst Dr. Constance Ikwoku. Good morning, Dr. Constance.
Hey, good morning, Yolanda.
Morning. Good to see you. You look great.
Good morning, Benga.
Good morning.
And over to Lagos. Good morning, Adesua and Vimbai. How are you guys doing?
Good morning.
No politics.
Well, look, feeling so much brighter. You're bringing sunshine on a rainy day. It's another wet day
no
here
politics
in Lagos,
of favoritism
thank
today.
you for bringing the rainbow with you.
Oh,
wow.
Thank you. Is it still raining in Lagos, though?
It sure is. Cats and dogs, I tell you. It's very heavy.
Okay, very dry here. Although it rained a little bit yesterday, not in all parts of Abuja.
I think Abuja started on Monday, so
yes,
they are taking over now.
All right. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with This Day. One of our top stories was on that strike, and so This Day leads with an update on the strike that threatened to disrupt economic activities across the country. Following 2 tough days of mediation and bargaining, the parties involved reached a compromise. The caption here says, DSS brokers truce as oil workers call off the strike. Nupeng TUC insisted Dangote cannot, form a union for workers. Narrate how Dangote team walked out of the meeting twice on the minister. Let's also see Daily Independent, which is reporting the same story. There, Nupeng suspends strike as Dangote settles for unionization. An MOU was signed between the parties, that's Dangote Group, and the Nigerian Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, Nupeng, with Dangote accepting to allow his staff to unionize. It was also agreed that the Dangote Group will not set up any other union. Well, this was settled in due time, seeing how an extended disruption of that sector could potentially affect the entire country. Plus, Nupeng eventually got its way even by.
Well, Nupeng certainly did get its way in this, but I think it's important to sort of get into the nitty-gritty of the details, which is that on the Dangote side, they insist that their workers should not be compelled to join any union. However, on the Nupeng side, they're also saying that the Dangote refinery should not victimize those who choose not to join a union. All in all, quite a tense exchange, but I'm glad that we were, they were able to meet halfway. It took a lot of intervention. You had several ministers. The Minister of Finance was said to have been there. You had Minister of Labor present there as well. So it turned into, and of course the DSS team also got involved. Now I think that's an important aspect for us to look at, because yes, there's a conversation to be had about how this potentially could have turned into a national security risk. We know the situations we're currently contending with regards to insecurity around the country. And we also know that this administration has been able to make it this far without any fuel scarcity, no fuel queues, and so forth. So I think given the fragile economic crisis we currently have as well, there are concerns that, some groups could take over this strike and fuel scarcity. And, we might see some of the protests that we've already seen take place over the past couple of years during this administration. So I think some group of people might raise a red flag or concern that, is it the DSS's role to be getting involved with regards to mediation when it comes to, in essence, what are labor issues? Why are these issues not referred to the relevant courts? It's an indictment on our judicial process, whether it be the National Industrial Court of Nigeria or any other court. The fact that these types of issues, which are supposed to be the flagship issues that these courts take over and mediate on and resolve speedily, are having to be done in high-level meetings that involve the DSS. I think the Tosin Ajayi DSS has been doing phenomenal work, especially with regards to curbing insecurity. We've seen the arraignment of several, bandits and criminals, especially over the past few weeks. So they need to be commended for that. But I think that we also need to be careful about the precedent that is being set here, where we are now saying that our security services are getting involved in mediation that, in essence, labor mediations. Yes, there are security implications. However, let's be careful about where we draw the line.
Yeah, Vimbai, I mean, I think it's because it's being reported. A lot of these things happen behind closed doors, and security officials are usually involved in quite a number of them. And I think when you spoke about there being no fuel scarcity under this administration, I think that was a misspeak. There have been quite a lot of queues in the past, especially last year, but now it's eased out. But good thing that at the end of the day, they've reached a compromise. Let's stay with this day. The government is still talking about that 5% fuel surcharge. Edu Oyedele say no plan to implement in January 2026. Explain commencement must be gazetted. Presidential Committee on Tax Chair reveals only 60,000 kilometers of 200,000 kilometers of roads in Nigeria are tarred. This data is highlighted by the government to justify the surcharge whenever it takes off or it comes into effect. So, Benga, every piece of information here is already in the public domain, as the government offered these same explanations last week. So, in spite of that, the general sentiment is that this surcharge, or tax, if you will, needs to be expunged, from the books.
I think first and foremost, it looks like the federal government is adopting a very clever red herring in begging the question, which I find extremely hypothetical. Why am I saying so? The Nigerians are not saying, I think the bone of contention has been shifted. The goalpost has been shifted because Nigerians are not saying that the 5% surcharge, 5% petrol tax is here and now. So they are saying that whenever, from now till 2026, is just a couple of months away. So the issue is not when. The issue is if and when Nigerians don't want it, because we've already made a lot of sacrifice for the nation, considering the first subsidy pronouncement at the outset of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, and also when you look at the exchange rate volatility, that Nigerians are the receiving end of the whole value chain. So when you also consider the fact that we have to look at the federal government explained yesterday that the origin of this came from the Federal Road Maintenance Act of 2007, and where about 40% is meant for the road maintenance. It's a good initiative, but nevertheless, in this kind of situation, the use of gazetting and all that does not explain the bone of contention, which is the financial burden put on Nigerians, and Nigerians are rejecting it. Many of the unions have also warned against this. So it's for the federal government to go back to its drawing board, and they've already been established multiple taxations on Nigerians. So if they are going to, the Tax Administration Act of 2005 needs to be reviewed. It really needs to be reviewed. If the masses are going to be at the receiving end of the bargain, then I don't think it's fair on the poor masses. Where when we look at the national minimum wage of 70,000, even the United Nations have said that this is no longer sustainable, bearing in mind the exchange rate volatility and the devaluation of the naira. So I think the federal government should come out with sincere, and not just to push out administrative rhetorics to calm the nerve. It's not going to address the issue.
All right. Finally, in this day newspaper, Natasha, citing pending appeal court case, NAS blocks Senator's resumption despite suspension expiration. Let's pull up the Guardian newspaper, where the caption says, PDP, LP, others have flayed Senate's move to stop Natasha's resumption. This has become a political circus. We followed it over the past couple of months. On the one hand are those who view this as injustice. On the other hand are those questioning whether she has tendered that public apology ordered by the court in national newspapers, as well as the 5 million fine. This is highly polarizing.
It is, but ultimately it is an absurdity. The letter from the clerk of the National Assembly is absolutely an absurdity. And first of all, we have to consider it separate first. It is unconstitutional. people have a right to representation, and the courts have ruled just that. The Federal High Court has ruled in her particular case that it's unconstitutional for her people to not have representation. Also, there's precedent for this. Every single case that a lawmaker has taken to our courts on their suspension that has been ruled upon has been found either unconstitutional, null and void, or illegal. The same thing happened with Senator Omar Agege in the Senate. We had that with Abdul Mumin Jibrin in the House of Representatives, Dino Malai when he was a member of the House of Representatives. And for me, her case really reminds me of Honorable Dana's case in Bauchi State in 2012, because she was also a woman. And she took her case to the court, and they said that it was unconstitutional. And regardless of them saying that the Bauchi State House of Assembly still refused to put Rifkatu Dana back in that house, and it was a consistent case. And it seemed then that they were trying to keep her case going so that the litigation would keep her out of office. And another thing that's important here is that even when we talk about her original suspension, the Senate Rules, section 67.4 of the Senate Rules says that the longest time a senator can be suspended for is 14 days. At the time they suspended her, there was a subsisting court order from the Federal High Court that said they should not sit on the matter. So what we have right now in Nigeria is a lot of absurdities when it comes to our legalese and our legal system, because the highest lawmaking body in the country is telling us that they can go around and take out actions that are unconstitutional, that are illegal, go against subsisting law, that go against democratic norms, that go against the rights of the people of Kogi State, and that they will do all of this to essentially punish one woman. And right, if we say yes, the suspension that has even been ruled unconstitutional has now expired, that she has not apologized or paid the fine, is not even the matter at hand. The matter at hand is that they're saying that there is a case in the Court of Appeal because the Senate President appealed the judgment. And the reason why this is the most absurd part of this for me is that most lawmakers have to face election tribunal after their elections. That means the matter at hand, while they are being sworn in, is that whether or not they were duly elected is sub judice. So does that set a precedent that means that if you have an election tribunal case, you should not be allowed to be sworn in or serve as a senator, because whether or not you are duly elected as a senator is a matter that's sub judice in court?
I think it's also important to clarify that with regards to the issue around the rules of the Senate and the suspension, that was not a ruling from Justice Nyako. It was a commentary in the CTC. The ruling
it
itself
was an order.
It was not an order.
It was an order. It was an obscure order. It was an obscure order,
if you'll
but
allow me to finish.
Order.
The CTC,
because you're clarifying on my point, so I just want to clarify what I meant.
The CTC specifically stated that it was unconstitutional, but that due to the doctrine of the separation of powers, the court cannot interfere with the disciplinary processes within the National Assembly. So I think it's also important to clarify that the ruling was made on the contempt.
Yes.
If I may seek some clarification.
So I was just clarifying
you recall
because
that
the order...
Okay, go ahead. I was just trying to
what
see.
I was saying there is that the order was vague. However, they ruled that the suspension was unconstitutional, but they did not rule.
It was commented.
It's a ruling. When you give a ruling, your ruling is contained in the order legally.
All right, Benga, please make your point before we move on.
Adesua, I don't want to disclose here that you're a lawyer, but we know that you are the Arise correspondent for the National Assembly. I'm just trying to clarify the issue of the claims from the clerk of the National Assembly, the clerk of the National Assembly, saying that the case would amount to sub judice if we ignore the process of the law. And you also recall that one of the reforms that majority of election observers have been clamoring for is that all pending election petitions should end before they are sworn in. So are we now going to use that as a bait for either bringing in Senator Natasha or not bringing her in? Because this has already been identified by a lot of civil society organizations that election petition in court should be concluded. That's part of the election reform that people are calling for. So how would you situate this in light of Senator Natasha's issue?
That's what, do you want to answer?
Definitely. I think what you're bringing... I think Benga is making the point that is very incredibly important here. And that's what because what happens in these type of cases that you can't set a precedent. Because if her suspension is sub judice, that means when they have an election petition matter, whether or not a senator or a member of the House of Representatives is duly elected is sub judice. And so if you're saying she cannot come back because her suspension is sub judice, I think that is setting up a precedent for the future. Okay. But we're yet to see where they're going to take this.
Okay, we've spent so much time on this topic. The word in the streets is that they don't want her back. We'll be watching. Leadership newspaper this morning, CBN targets $1 billion monthly diaspora remittances next year. The central bank governor, Olayemi Cardoso, disclosed the bank is taking deliberate steps to enable these remittances. The monthly remittances, which stood at $250 million, has now increased to $600 million following reforms. I mean, you have to ask, why is the CBN making all these efforts? The reason is that diaspora remittances are a critical source of foreign exchange for Nigeria, often surpassing oil revenues. They provide steady flow of hard currency that strengthens our external reserves. But when you listen to many Nigerians abroad, Yolanda, I'd like you to come in here. When you listen to many Nigerians abroad, they would rather that Nigeria is thriving so that they can return to their country.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of areas to look into as well. You know, it's not just people sending money, it's also people acquiring property in Nigeria, people acquiring assets and doing their best to make sure that they're coming back to a nice cushion when they return, because a lot of people have been having that type of conversation, I'm sure, as you have
making
mentioned.
Investments.
Absolutely.
There are actually tools being set up for them to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And this just shows how important the diaspora community is and how these funds are important into stabilizing the Nigerian economy. So this $1 billion is actually quite a staggering amount, and it also shows a strategic, you know, just a way of leveraging the Nigerians' diaspora, so to speak. I think that this is a very positive thing. I'm very shocked at the numbers. I didn't expect them to be that high, especially with a monthly input. That's a really big remittance, $1 billion.
Yeah, this is actually the recorded ones. But let's
so the target is 1 billion.
Yes.
So we're currently at 600 million. We've moved from 250 to 600 million, and they're hoping to reach a target of $1 billion.
Yes, but surely
by
if they're saying,
2026.
yes, it should be close enough. Surely if there's that level of speculation, as it coming in monthly, 600, and them expecting that for 2026, so it's not so far off.
Yeah.
So it's not a forecast, it's a target. And so what happened at the event was that it was a charge from the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria for the banking institutions to be able to strengthen, some of their facilities that allow for the ease of the remittance of diasporas, diaspora remittances, excuse me. So the conversation is really around what can the banking sector do to attract more of these funds so that this very ambitious target can possibly be reached in 2026.
All right. The reforms are ongoing already.
Absolutely.
I mean, the reforms have already been carried out within the last 1 year was what brought this number to 600 million.
Exactly.
Vanguard newspaper, let's take a light-hearted story in this paper. Will brand Nigeria as global culinary powerhouse, according to Kalajaye. Modupeola Kalajaye is an accountant turned gourmet caterer. She previously worked at Ernst & Young as an auditor and now lives and breathes African continental cuisine. Guys, can we take a minute to discuss how branding Nigeria as a country with cultural and creative assets and positioning it as a hub in Africa, you know, for music, film, theater, innovation, fashion, can reshape perceptions about the country within the continent and globally. So we're talking about soft power. Benga, if you want to come in here.
Well, it's quite interesting to see that just some months ago, Nigeria launched the Nigeria First policy. And when we look at our immense potential, we've really come of age, and we should be able to maximize potential. But in doing this, we need fiscal discipline. Just yesterday, the Minister of Information spoke about the 6-month ban on shea production.
Yeah.
And he explained that that was not a policy experiment, but a bold and strategic move for the government to become a global leader in the shea production and in the agricultural value chain. But be that as it may, we should realize that the world is moving at a very fast pace. So 6 months, for me, is a deal breaker. A lot of things could have changed with it. So many things are changing in different sectors, technology, so many reforms. So the federal government really needs to, if it's not going to slum into what I would call a wishful thinking, it really needs to come up with an ambitious and proactive plan to ensure that most of these are potentials. Because Niger State alone can supply the world on this shea product. And we also know that Nigeria supplies 50% of this shea products in the world. So if it's going to take a seat back, it should come up with a comprehensive roadmap where we could maximize this to boost our foreign exchange potential and also create jobs.
Okay, let's move quickly to Daily Trust. A very sad story here, how flood swept away 2 sisters in Zaria, Kaduna State. It's such a sad story. 2 sisters got off a motorcycle when the driver was said to have hit the edge of the drainage, and in an attempt to jump over, she fell into the water with the child on her back. Very unfortunate incident. It also mirrors the flooding that is going on across the country because of the rainy season. The Punch newspaper, doctors to decide on nationwide strike today, so another strike in the making. And then we have the Daily Sun this morning. Northern elders recommend dialogue with bandits. This is going to be a very controversial one, although payments have been made to bandits across the country, especially in the north, during all these years of insurgency and banditry and kidnapping. Okay, let's see what's happening in the international headlines. Daily Graphic, state of retail markets. This is the chief executive officer of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, warning foreign investors. He has told Ghanaians that while foreign investors are welcome, sectors legally reserved for Ghanaians will be protected. Ghana Investment Promotion bars foreigners from engaging in petty trading and other businesses strictly preserved for Ghanaians. Yolanda, I'd like you to come in here. This news item is timely in light of the civil disturbances we've seen all across the African continent with regard to small businesses. We have Tanzania, Cameroon banning those small businesses, and a lot of Africans reacting. Yet, the majority of Africans on the continent are into small businesses, SMEs, and we're also talking about the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. So, really, how does this all work?
I'm on the fence with this one, to be honest, Dr. Constance, because on one hand, you have the small businesses being protected, and on the other hand, you know, investors being invited to come into the nation and bring in their money to, you know, raise the economy and all of that. So it's really difficult to say because both sides have their pros and their cons. For me, I believe that the locals should be protected, their business interests should be protected, but it also comes with some very severe, you know, cons to that, as I mentioned earlier on. It's really difficult to say, Dr. Constance. I think I would like to pass this question on to somebody else.
Okay, if I may just come in here. It's been a long-standing draconian stance by the Ghana Investment Promotion Council, I think about 13 years ago, when we recorded the first visibly clampdown on Nigerian retailers and investors in Ghana, small petty traders in Ghana. Then I think we should allow, and that's the global standard, we should allow for a free market economy where people can invest and let the economy thrive, let the economy dictate the pace, rather than having because it could have a ripple effect. It could idly restrict. By the time the Nigerian traders leave Ghana, that is when they will know the actual implication of what they are doing.
And where do you draw the line?
I think when we look at the value chain, Nigerians, especially, I don't want to mention the ethnic group, so that I wouldn't be accused of being of bigotry. But when we look at, they've really made investments across the world. They are very, very entrepreneurial in their drive.
Nigerians of every ethnic group are across Africa.
Yeah, and
doing
very
businesses,
enterprising.
working. Nigerians of every ethnic
across
group.
the world.
So,
Wherever
yes.
money is being
Yes.
made, they are there.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
that's just the point I was trying to make.
But let's take the Ethiopian story, very, very important. We know that the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, Africa's largest hydroelectric dam, has been inaugurated with a capacity of over 5,000 megawatts of electricity. What stands out to me on this dam, on this project, is that 91% of the project cost was borne by the Ethiopian Central Bank.
Yes.
The remaining 9% by bond sales and contributions from citizens. No foreign loans, and it cost $5 billion. Lots of lessons here, you know. Adesua, do you want to come in? I know, Yolanda, you had a thought on that, but quickly, but Adesua, you can also come in.
Go ahead, Adesua.
Yeah, I thought you were going to throw to Yolanda there. I think this is absolutely brilliant, and brilliant from Ethiopia, particularly because it is primarily funded by themselves. You know, there was issues with when this dam was coming up, and it will continue to cause issues because of the river now and Egypt, you know, because water is a very important resource. I was speaking recently about the battle over water, and control over water is what both unites countries, but also what sparks crises across this continent. But importantly here, of course, is that the fact that this is electricity that we're talking about. Africa is essentially called the dark continent sometimes, not in the racist way, but because a lot of our people are not connected to the electricity grid. So honestly, kudos to the Ethiopians for carrying out and completing this project. But I also think when you think about Egypt and when you think about the repercussions, I think this is going to have both positive and negative effects.
Definitely.
Yeah, very quickly before Yolanda comes in, I also think that this ties in very beautifully with the story around diaspora remittances, because the dam bonds were created by the Ethiopian government, which in fact created a diaspora remittance fund, a bond that those who were in the diaspora, in essence, could contribute their earnings towards the fund that built this dam. So I think when we're talking about diaspora remittances, as we were earlier, it's not just about talking about the numbers and being sort of excited about what the numbers say. It's about, are these remittances being used as development drivers as opposed to consumption cushions? Because we don't need an influx of more money that goes towards consumption. What we need is money that is fueling productivity and development. So this is a fantastic example of how diaspora remittances can be turned into bonds in order to fund developmental initiatives.
We're almost out of time. Let's quickly take, you know, there was that important story from Nepal where they were having protests, protest strikes, movement against the prime minister who has now resigned. In fact, he took a helicopter and ran out of there. It just shows what collective action can do in a country. He had banned social media, and the Gen Zs were not having it. They were so upset that they had to troop to the streets. And, you know, unfortunately, the parliament was touched. His residence was also touched. But again, the people outnumber. No matter the number of policemen you put on the streets, soldiers, the people will outnumber the leaders. That's just a lesson there. Finally, there's the Times. Israel risks Trump's wrath by hitting Hamas in Qatar. We also have here Daily Mail that has a rather humorous headline: why in God's name did our bathrobe-clad ambassador to Washington fawn over a wicked pedophile who called him Petey? That's the Epstein files and the scandal that is unfolding. And then finally, Financial Times tightens grip on economic policy in bid to keep business on side, and U.S. slashes 911,000 of hiring numbers and hints at sharp cooling under Biden. Those were your headlines for today.
Okay, just one touch on the dam story. That reminds me of my visits to Ethiopia in 2012 and 2013. And one thing you could talk about the Ethiopians is that they have a strong sense of national pride. I remember a cab driver driving me around the roundabout of, he talked about, have you seen the Adwa Square? That was where they defeated the Italians. So they've always had a strong sense of national pride. You could see them defending their budget, that they didn't seek the assistance of the U.S. government. I hope that the Nigerian government could borrow a leaf from here.